I'm literally so nervous. Oh, I'm not doing this. Hello everyone. For today's video, it's going to be a little bit more serious, but I think it's definitely worth it to take the time to talk about this. So I'm just going to start out by saying I was diagnosed with anxiety December of 2014, and I kind of just wanted to share my story with that and how I grew from it and everything I've learned about myself, about the condition, everything like that. So I didn't plan this at all. I was actually going to do like a super fun like Q&A with my sisters, but that ended up not happening. And so I was like thinking like, what do I do next? What do I do next? And this is something that I think is important to talk about. So yeah, just gonna get started. So let's start. I don't even know where to start. Okay, so it was December of 2014. I was a junior in high school. I was a cheerleader, I was in leadership, I was taking AP classes, and I was working. And so during that time, you know, I was really busy, but I was like, I'm young, I can do this, whatever, and pushed any negative feeling aside. So it was a Friday. There was a lot going on that day. The night before, we had a kid joke about shooting up the school, and even though it was a joke, it was really scary. And so I didn't go to school until around like 10 a.m. that morning. They had caught the kid, and they talked with him about how it's not funny to joke about gun violence and stuff like that. But I ended up going to school around 10 a.m. I went to school that night. It was a basketball game, and then after the basketball game was Tolo. I had asked my boyfriend the weekend before to go to Tolo with me. Of course, he said yes. And so it was like a really busy day, and it was kind of like a weird day too, because we're like, oh, like we just had this like threat happen, but it was a joke, even though it's not funny. So like I went home. I had realized that I had forgotten some stuff at my mom's for the Tolo dance. So I was driving to my mom's, and I started feeling like really weird. Like it was almost like someone had fogged my eyes completely. I couldn't breathe. I was shaking, and I was like, you know what? I had an energy drink today. I'm probably just dehydrated or need something to drink or eat. And so I like pulled over, and I froze. I was completely frozen. I was paralyzed by my own body. I was like, this is it. Like, I'm dying. I'm having a heart attack. I'm having a stroke. Something is wrong. So luckily my dad had worked from home that day. So I called him, and I was like, Dad, something is wrong. I'm not sure what, but I don't feel okay. And so he came and got me. We went to urgent care. At that point, my heart rate was 140 beats per minute. So they automatically did an EKG on me. I had started feeling numb on the right side of my body, and they couldn't find anything at urgent care. And so I got sent to the ER. It's so hard to talk about this and not get emotional because it was such a scary day in my life. So when I got sent to the ER, I was still not feeling great, but I was feeling a little bit better, knowing nothing was wrong with me. At least, you know, not that the urgent care could find. So we went to the ER. I checked in. They asked me what was going on. I was like, I don't feel okay. It was the weirdest thing. I couldn't pinpoint anything, except I felt like I was going to pass out. The right side of my body was numb, and my heart was just racing like crazy. So they take me back. They're like, what's wrong? Again, couldn't explain. They're like, all right, let's perform another EKG on me. So they hook me up to the heart monitor, and my heart rate was 180 beats per minute. And so the nurse, I'm sure she didn't mean to say this, but she said, oh shit. She pushed my dad back, and then after that I had blacked out. I'm sure they were thinking I was going into a stroke, a heart attack, something. Then they hooked me up to an IV, and my heart rate started to drop, and then it picked back up, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me that night. It was just a bunch of pokes and needles and questions, and it was one of the longest nights of my life, and I'm sure it was one of the longest nights of my parents' lives. So that was my ER visit. They had sent me home saying that I was dehydrated. So there's that. The next day, I was still feeling weird. I knew something was wrong, but I was like, the doctors told me nothing was wrong, so nothing's wrong. I was at urgent care, I think like two more times that week. And they had finally said, enough, you're going to a cardiologist. Obviously something's wrong. So that Friday I go to the cardiologist, and they run so many more tests. Like echograms of my heart. They did an ultrasound of my heart. They ran another EKG. I was hooked up to a heart monitor for 24 hours. That made me break out in hives, and it was itchy, and I couldn't sleep that night. And I literally had to record every single time I felt like my heart rate was going to elevate. It was one of the worst weeks of my life. Sorry. So the cardiologist comes back. He says, nothing's wrong with you. You have one of the healthiest hearts I've ever seen. Your blood pressure is great. Your vitals are great. That is when he brought up the idea of me having anxiety. And after that, I just remember no one was in the room. I had gone to this different headspace, and I was like, anxiety? Like, what? Like, only, like, this is gonna sound, not correct, but I was young at the time. I was like, only crazy people have anxiety. Like, I have one of the best lives ever. I'm doing so well in school. I have so many friends. I have so much going for me. What do you mean I have anxiety? And so, that was really hard. And I was like, you know what? No, I don't. So I went into a denial phase. And then, these episodes started happening more and more. I would get paralyzed hours at a time because of panic attacks. I was in a constant state of, like, I'm gonna die, because of how fast my heart was beating. And for some reason, when your heart is beating that quick, at least my body's reaction to it was my whole right side of my body went numb. And so, I was just like, I've had enough. I had fallen into one of the deepest depressions that I didn't even know how to cope with it. Like, I just wanted to sleep. I'd wake up to eat. I'd go back to sleep. I went to the nurse's office several times to say I was sick because I didn't want to be there. And I was like, I can't live like this. So I went to my doctor. She was like, unfortunately it does run in your family. This is super common for girls your age who are going through a lot. Do you want to take medication? And right off the bat, I said no. So then I turned to counseling. So I didn't believe in the power of counseling until I went. So my first visit, they just get to know you, you know, they're like, where do you work? What do you do? Do you have any hobbies? Blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, these things that I had built up and I didn't even know I had built up started pouring out like water fountain. And like, by the time I knew it, my session was over. And I was like, what? I'm not done, you know? And I found out so many things about myself, and that these feelings of like death were normal. I know that sounds so weird, but you know, in the moment you're just like so scared because you go into this like, it's almost like this like alternate universe. Like seriously, like you are just so foggy, you can't move, you are panicked for your life. It was just so weird how everything I was saying, my counselor was like, you know, because she's heard it before. And it was so good knowing I wasn't alone. And it was so good knowing that everything I was feeling was normal. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself. If I hadn't gone to counseling, I wouldn't know how to get my panic attacks under control in 30 seconds. I wouldn't know how to get them under control when I'm driving. And that's another thing about anxiety. A lot of people get the word anxiety and nervous mixed up. When you're nervous, it's like I'm kind of nervous for this test. I'm kind of nervous for, this interview, like all that stuff. That is a feeling. Anxiety is a state of mind. And when you are in a panic attack, the first thing you notice is that your whole world, or at least for me, because I have panic disorder, it just goes foggy. Like, that's the first thing, like, it hits my eyes automatically. And then my heart rate starts picking up, and then I get sweaty and clammy, and my first thought is like, I'm dying. But then I have to re-trigger my emotions and be like, nope, this is a panic attack. You're okay. Go into a safe spot. And I just had to learn all these coping mechanisms, like finding my truths, learning how to breathe, learning to switch my state of mind into thinking everything's okay. I am not in danger. There's no reason my body needs to be in fight or flight right now. And to be perfectly honest, like, people are like, oh, it's just anxiety. Like, you just get nervous. No. Being nervous is completely different than thinking that you're dying. And it sucks. There's a lot of days where my anxiety will pick up and I'm like, I'm just trying to go to sleep right now. Like, why? Why is it picking up? And there's nothing in my life that went bad or poorly, but there's a lot of things that I found out about myself that make me the way I am. And it's just so important to recognize, like, when you need help and where you should get help and what's going to work best for you. And it's also important to identify the type of anxiety you have. Mine was, I go into panics. Some people's anxiety, they have, it leads to really bad depression. Mine did at first because I constantly thought I was dying, then I was alive, dying, then alive. And I didn't realize why I felt that way until I went to counseling and someone had to explain why your body goes into fight or flight mode when you're in a panic attack. I've just learned so much about myself. I've grown so much as a person. My parents have been nothing but supportive. Every time I'm in a panic attack, and I know I am, if I call one of them, I know they'll answer and they'll listen to the way I'm feeling, and then they'll be like, but you're safe and you're okay, because they've both listened to me and what I need during that time, and that's what I need. My boyfriend has been nothing but supportive during this whole thing. Like, he knows if I am in a panic attack, he knows exactly what to do. He knows exactly what to say. It's been one of the craziest things that I've ever found out about myself, but I've done a lot of self-exploration because of it too, and I've gotten the right help, and I'm honestly so much stronger of a person because of it. My dad got me this really awesome book by Max Lucado. It's called Anxious for Nothing, and it's very like scripture based. So, you know, if you're not strong in your faith, or, you know, you don't believe in God, it's totally fine, but this book definitely wouldn't be something for you. But it explains like how weird it is that at one point you're like, this is it, I'm done for, to I survived, I went through that, you know. And like after a panic attack, you're just like so exhausted and sick to your stomach because your body went through a fight or flight mode. It's like, it's the feeling of when you almost like hit a car, or it's a feeling when you see someone that you don't like, or, but it lasts longer than it should. Luckily, I've gotten my panic attacks down to 30 seconds or less, which I'm so thankful for, because they would literally paralyze me for hours on end. I didn't take the proper care of myself to deal with stressful times, and it built upon it, it built upon it, it built upon it, and I didn't talk to anyone when I was having negative feelings, because I was always that person like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm happy, you know. And so it's just so important to go get help. It's so important to use your resources. It's important to read about it. Like I'm going to go back to that book by Max Lucado. He was nothing but honest, and I think that if you have anxiety, or one of your loved ones have anxiety, you should read that book, because it makes you understand exactly what they're feeling. I know it's probably hard for people to understand what anxiety is, because people that have anxiety don't really understand it themselves. There's days where being around people is really hard. And there's days where I get stressed and I put myself into a panic attack, and, you know, that's not fair. But what I've done for myself by getting help and using my resources, I've been able to not overcome it, because it's probably something I'm going to have for the rest of my life, but I'm not letting it define who I am. I am conquering it. I am strong. I am taking over it. So I know that was a lot of information all at once, and I know the tone of this vlog was more serious, but I think it's so important to raise mental health awareness, because you have to take care of yourself first and foremost. And that was something that was really hard for me to learn, was to put myself first. So put yourself first, get the right help, and know that it's normal. Make sure that you are loving yourself and you're doing the right things for your body and mind, so you don't have to slip into, you know, like depression or anxiety or panic attacks. Yes, it's going to happen. Life gets crazy, and you have to take care of yourself, and like that's the bottom line. I don't want like sympathy from this video. I don't want, you know, like people to feel bad for me. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking, or not asking, I just think it's important that I shared my story, knowing that I took charge of my own life and said that this is not going to define me, I'm going to conquer it, is so important. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, comment down below, or, you know, you can always inbox me anything. Bye guys.